In this video, I'm going to be talking about the texture of Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 5, the third movement. The overall texture of the movement is polyphonic or contrapuntal. It's more or less the same thing. This is where you've got multiple melodies all played independently of each other. Now there are lots of other textures in there as well, so I'll just list them first of all and then we can go into them in more depth. So the other textures include monophonic, fugato, dialoguing, doubling in thirds and in unison, and stretto. So let's have a look at those. So fugato. Well, remember that this piece is in a fugal style. At least at the beginning it is. It would be wrong to say that the whole piece is a fugue because it doesn't actually follow the structure of a fugue all the way through. But the opening few bars does open in the same way as a fugue would open. And so we say that the texture of the opening passage is fugato or fugal, while the overall piece isn't a fugue. So what is a fugue? Well, a fugue begins with a main subject, a main melody, which opens on its own, and in this case the first two bars are on their own. We hear that main subject, it's this. Okay, that's immediately followed by an answer, and in this case it's a tonal answer because it doesn't start exactly on the same notes. Underneath that answer, the original instrument, which is the violin in this case, the violin continues playing and it's playing a counter subject underneath. So this is the same as a fugue, and once all the different instruments have entered, we say that the fugal opening has ended really. That's where the fugue goes up to. After that, it just follows A, B, A, ternary form. So the texture at the beginning is monophonic because we've got two bars on their own, and then it's a fugato or fugal texture opening. Another texture that we hear in this piece is called dialoguing, and dialoguing, as the word suggests, is a dialogue. It's like a speech between two parts or two instruments. Now an example of dialoguing is here at bar 106, where we've got kind of a conversation between the harpsichord and some of the other instruments. So we've got a little movement, a little passage here in the harpsichord, and then the flute, violin and viola take over an answer, and then the harpsichord comes back, and then the other parts come back again. Okay, so we've got this conversation between the harpsichord and the other instruments coming back and forth and swapping, and that's called dialoguing. Another texture used is doubling. Doubling in thirds, first of all. It's when two instruments or voices are playing a melody together but a third apart. So we've got a couple of examples here. First in the harpsichord, where we've got this trill, and it's doing exactly the same melody but in thirds. Okay, so it's a third apart playing parallel. Here's another example where we've got the flute and the violin at 106, and it's one I've just mentioned with the dialoguing, but here we go, we've got, and then okay, so you can hear that melody in thirds there. Another example, similar, doubling in unison, sorry. So it's the same, it's when it's the exact same pitch. So we've got an example here between the flute and the violin at bar 35. So we've got them playing the exact same melody. So they play exactly the same melody at the same pitch, that's doubling. And the last textural effect I want to talk about is stretto. Now this is particularly important when talking about our fugal texture. As we know, a fugue is when you've got a main subject followed by an answer, either a tonal answer or a real answer. And in this case, the answers always come 2 bars later than the subject, okay? So I'll show you an example of that. At the beginning, we've got the violin going, and then straight after that, we've got the flute, okay? That's coming in 2 bars later. Now what stretto is it squeezes those two together, so the answer comes much quicker than 2 bars. It will come in halfway through, which means it creates a much more intense feeling because it feels busier and more intense. The parts are coming in quicker, and that is what stretto is. And it comes in, there's an example right here, right before the B section. I'm going to play it very slowly so we can hear it. Okay, so we get the answer coming in sooner than it normally would, so it's creating a much more intense feel. Okay, that's texture.